Tell us who you are and why you're here and what you're doing and
Stand up.
stuff like
Better
that.
if I stand up.
Okay?
So my name's Kurt Lawson, and I want to thank all of you for choosing me as the deputy chief here at Franklin Bingham Farms. As most of you know, I was at West Bloomfield for 30 years. I started off there in 1994 as a cadet, was hired as a police officer the next year, and then obviously a long period of time, I rose through the ranks. And I was very fortunate while I was there. I pretty much did everything you can do in the police department. It's an 82-person police department, 120 total people, many different task forces and investigation positions, and I did pretty much all of those. And I was a supervisor pretty much at every level. So I guess I come to you with quite a bit of experience. I was fortunate enough, in my opinion, to get promoted relatively young. So I was up in administration in 2008. So I started doing their budget, which at the time was right around $16 million, a little bit more than here. 16 million.
Not much.
And
Not much.
did all the forfeiture funds, did purchasing, did all the bidding, things like that. So I got very familiar with the administrative portion of law enforcement, which is much different than the undercover or detective or working the road. So I've seen all aspects, and I think that's, being up there from 2008, I was able to kind of hone my skills as a leader. And I think that's where I pride myself the most, is my leadership skills, my ability to relate with the men and women on the police department, certainly with the community. I was, as deputy chief, I was very active in the West Bloomfield community. That was kind of my bread and butter. My chief at the time was very hands-on. He pretty much ran the department. There was not a lot of delegation to other supervisors, which was just his style. So I had to look for another avenue where I could be of value to the organization, and that's where I was out in the community all the time, talking, meeting people, business owners, things like that. So those are kind of the things that I bring here. I grew up in the area, as many of you know. I grew up just across the border in Beverly Hills, so I understand the community. I understand their expectations. I brought the brand to West Bloomfield was customer service, professionalism, and partnership with the community. And that's what, and I know the chief has the same philosophy here, and that's what I'd want to continue. The only thing that I've seen so far, and first of all, I'd say he's been incredible. The men and women in the police department have been very welcoming to me. I've been very impressed with the team that we have over there. I am a little bit concerned, I just want to put this out there, about the fact that they are on a lower scale of paid compared to other agencies. And I know that I want to retain the talent that we have because you have a great team over there. So it's just something for you to keep in mind. Obviously, that's up to all of you. But they are definitely at the lower echelon of compensation. But with that, I'll take any questions and comments from any of you.
Why don't we take a second and just give you a little bit about us?
Sure.
And so you have an idea who we are. But David, you just want to...
Yeah, David Solly was recently, I guess no longer recently, elected in the most recent, or I guess the last election. And so closing in on, I don't know, a year and a half or so on council. And I guess I will just go into the comments as far as I have 4 young children that are within the community, and they were a major motivation for me running, to make sure that this community is representing kind of all walks of life. And one of the things that I absolutely love about our community is the close-knit aspect of it, and the fact that it's so relatively small that you have to be friendly to your neighbors because you're going to see them later in the day. And I'm glad that you spoke about your community involvement, because when I had an opportunity to look through the resumes, you were extremely qualified. But what really jumped off the page to me was your community involvement. That weighed very heavily into me. In the modern day, I was like, hey, let's go see social media. So I went on your social media page, or your Facebook page, and saw the promotion that you did with the community, and saw the true and genuine investment that you had in the community. And I knew that that is exactly what this community needed, was, again, having kind of that close-knit familiarity with everyone. we are extremely lucky to have you, not just from your talent, but also because of your approach to community. And so, again, thank you.
Kurt, yes, my name's David Goldberg. I had the pleasure of meeting you. I sat in on the interview process and was overwhelmed by pretty much everything about you, your resume, your demeanor, your comfortability with us. So I too am grateful that you're going to be a part of the village and hopefully for a long time to come. Personally, I'm a little bit like you. I grew up just outside the borders of Franklin in Bloomfield Township, so I've been here for a little over 50 years and have seen the evolution of Franklin and love the village and, you know, want to do anything possible. And one of the things that's always been, you know, an anchor of the community has been our police force, its professionalism, its coverage, its willingness to, you know, become part of the community, which I anticipate you will do and look forward to that. And just really excited for this next step in the village's future. And with regard to the items that you've mentioned, yes, we're well aware of the financial impacts of the police force, and we are always looking and will be in the immediate future looking for ways to increase the revenues in that area.
I am Kathy Ehrlich. I am a lifelong resident of Franklin. I have been active in the Franklin Community Association for a couple decades now and will continue that probably for the rest of my life, I expect. And that, I don't know if you know about that, we have a community that we own, the park here is not owned by the village itself. And so we are active in putting on community groups, community events like the Roundup, and we very much appreciate working together with the police and the fire and departments and making the event really special. I am also a business owner in Franklin, so I have that also, that I am learning a lot about that group of people. And their needs, something different than I knew before. So I'm just involved in Franklin, and I appreciate you being here, and thank you.
Cool. I gotta say, I do appreciate your being here. I think we got a great fit. Unlike these guys, I didn't grow up in Michigan. I grew up in Northwest Indiana and got a job in the auto industry, and it's been a long time ago. So Franklin is a unique place, and my wife and I found it just driving through one day, and it looked different, and the kids had just left for college, and we said, let's look, and we found two houses we could afford, and we bought one of them. You know, I have 2 kids, I have 5 grandkids, and we were daycare providers for our grandkids for 10 years or something. The oldest has got a driver's license now, so those days are gone, but it's different with kids. But so I have, I like this place. I like the aesthetic. I like the people. I want to keep it that way, and I know the police are a big part of that, and the relationships that we have that I didn't have in bigger communities. So welcome, and glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Kurt. I'm Michael Seltzer. Unlike other members of the council, I grew up in a city very different from this, the city of Detroit, 5 miles south of here. And my wife and I grew up in the same neighborhood, met in high school, married, and we moved here in about 30 years ago in a very unique home that is known as Franklin House. It's a former restaurant. It's on Scenic Highway. And I immediately dove right into the community by joining the Franklin Community Association, as Kathy mentioned. I was its president for over a decade, and then I was asked to join this council in 2010, where I've been ever since. So 4 terms on the council. And we are most proud of the community that we serve. We are very proud of our police department. We think it is head and shoulders above any other, and respectfully, we're grateful to have you on board. Your credentials are excellent. You fit well within the kind of community that we are serving, and we think very highly of Chief Roberts, and I think one of the saddest days for us will be the day we say goodbye to him. So you got big shoes to fill, but he's very impressed with you, as are we, and so we welcome you, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Pam.
What's the question?
We're introducing
Introduce
ourselves.
yourself, too.
He's already introduced himself to us.
Got it.
So you
Sorry
might-
I'm late. I thought this was wine and cheese and I could be a few minutes late.
There's no wine, there's no cheese, there's no budget,
The whining has not started yet.
and our cops don't get enough money, so.
I had the pleasure of being one of the people interviewing Kurt, so we've met. I'm Pam Hansen, a 30-year resident of the village, like a lot of us are. 30 is median, I think. I've been on the village council since 2012. I was elected president of the village from 16 to 20, and then took a spot as a trustee. And my term ends, I think, in 2 years, or 2.5 years or something. Is there anything in particular you wanted to know?
Doug, you're on the right track.
Okay.
A little bit about yourself and how long you've been.
I'm probably going to say some things these guys don't know about. Mark is my neighbor, so he knows a lot. My husband and I moved here in 1993. He passed away a couple of years later, so we have never had a chance to fix some things around the house that he should have done. But, you know, I'm mostly over it. I have a daughter that's in college, or that is works for the Department of Justice down in Miami-Dade. And I have a stepson that's currently living in Germany. I don't get to see them very often, but we talk a lot on the phone. I rescue dogs and have for many years. I'm a gardener, and I pay a lot of attention to things going on in the village. We collectively worked on the streetscape a couple years ago, starting in 2018. It's on my mind right now because I got a call from one of the trustees from Bingham Farms today, and she was having a few conniptions about them moving forward with what sounds like a similar project. And I'm sure we'll be talking more. I was able to tell her I thought it turned out okay. It was hard work. I think that was where I learned about the importance of collegiality and trust among the village council people. We do our best work when we collaborate. We don't do well when we just can't get our act together on small things, mostly, and a couple of big ones. So I welcome you to the village. I think it's a great place to be, and I know you know a lot about it because you've been, been close. I have a business, finally, I'll just end with that. I consult with organizations on leadership development, problem solving sticky problems that they have, mostly working with the leaders of the organization. I'm currently doing some work with Oakland County, and have a lot of experience in the automotive industry in the city, but you know what? I'm not doing much of that anymore, and I'm really happy to have a little more time on my hands, so welcome again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kurt, very nice to meet you. Mark Henke. I've been here for 24 years now. I think the math when people go through it. I'm also a neighbor of Pam's, so she hasn't let that on. I worked
It's a
for
good part of the town, northeast
Yes.
corner. Yeah.
Wing Lake Road. I have worked, my career has been manufacturing, Ford Motor Company, and Tier 1 suppliers all over the world. Manufacturing operations, running plants, assembly lines, small business owner, multiple businesses. here in Franklin, outside of Franklin. My role here on the council, really, besides the village council, I'm part of the personnel committee and the finance committee. So we have a lot of engagement in terms of what is in the budget, what is our revenue coming in, our expenses going out, making sure we're on the good side of those maths, right? So I welcome you to the village. I'm glad you're here. You're the right guy for the good job, so I think they have a good future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Dan, do you want to confirm or refute any of the statements that we've made?
No, I just say, I think y'all made a great choice with Kurt. As you know, there was well over 20 applicants from literally all over the United States. We narrowed it down and did 2 rounds of interviews, and you know, he had some tough competition, but really, you know, his resume and his interview skills came out very apparent during the interviews, and so we clearly, or you all clearly picked the right person for it, so I think he'll be great here for years to come. He's already had a chance to meet several of our most fascinating residents, and I use that term loosely, in the first month that he's been here. Some of our frequent flyers, we like to call them. Some of them I think that actually have been emailing you quite regularly about things that they don't like about the police department or whatever, so he's getting a good feel for it the first month already, so love having him here.
Cool.
I guess I'd just like to finish, if it's okay, just talk about my family. I've been married for 24 years. My wife Erin, she's currently in charge of special needs in Livonia. So she's going into her last couple of years there, and she also works at a clinic at night as a therapist, 3 nights a week. So she definitely stays, you know, we stay very busy. We like to work. And both my kids went to Grand Valley. My oldest is currently a junior. Very proud of her. She's on student senate there. And shockingly, my youngest, who went as a freshman this year, she specialized in partying. And Dr. Ehrlich, you probably don't remember her, Vaughn Lawson, but she's back home now, but she's doing well. So that's my family. 2 daughters, 20 and 18.
Cool. Yeah. Do you have specific questions for us?
I don't. I guess the only thing is, you know, if I get the opportunity and later in the year to take over as chief, if you have any issues or concerns, I'm available 24/7. I'm definitely very open-minded, and you know, I want us to be the best police department we can for all of you and for the community. So my ears are open. I'm always willing to listen and give you feedback on certainly my opinion, but I know that you're the bosses, and I look forward to serving you in the village of Bingham Farms.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we appreciate your words. We appreciate that you're being here. Between now and the rest of the year, as we make plans forward, it's been good conversations with ourselves and yourself with Chief Dan. You know, where are we? Pluses, minuses. You know, almost doing like a SWOT analysis of the police department. You know, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Like what's going well, what's not going well, and what should our path forward be?
Is that question directed to
No,
you?
that's a question towards you in the next 9 months as the chief prepares, having an understanding of the police department, what's working well, what's not working well, and where do we see our future for the next 5 years, let's say. You know, we have to make that path. We obviously, you know this already, we have financial concerns. So how do we make that work and maintain everything we want in the police department? Those are, you know, a lot of hard rocks there. You know,
I mean, to the extent that you mentioned that some of the members of the staff are underpaid, that's a big issue. We have a budget, and a good portion of the monies that we raise via taxation goes to our fine police department. We know that we are an envious police department because of our locale, because of the rural nature, because of the kind of crime that we deal with versus Southfield, Detroit, et cetera. But is that enough of an incentive to draw the talent that we need to properly protect ourselves? And what is it that you think we're going to be needing to address as it relates to budget and salary?
It's a little early, me being only here a month.
Obviously.
A robust report.
And I'm not asking for an actual answer.
But I can tell you that being a police officer today is like a free agent market. You go what's best for you. They're not locked into where, when I started at West Bloomfield, I was either going to go to the FBI or stay in West Bloomfield. I was going to be loyal to an organization. Officers that are getting into this profession now, They want to know about pensions, they want to know about 457s, they want to know about pay, and they certainly want to know about time off. And they're going to go where it's best for them. And if they're at 3 years at one spot and they see another position somewhere else that maybe look more enticing, a lot of times they'll make that jump. So we have to find a way where Franklin is somewhere where they want to be, a destination point. And I'm sure if we all work together, we can find ways to do that within the budget restraints that you have. I know that in West Bloomfield, we were probably in the middle of the pay, and we do have a nice pension. And they, last year, in October, I want to say, gave every officer a $9,000 raise without the officers asking, just because we needed to attract talent. We could not get anyone to apply to be a police officer in West Bloomfield. And our budget was pretty robust and our equipment's pretty good. So that's why my concern here a little bit in a smaller department. It's very customer service oriented. There's not a lot of action, which is a good thing for all of us in this room. But how do we entice these young officers or even seasoned officers to come to Franklin? That's the big question. I think that we just have to look at the big picture and talk our way through it.
What would you say if an officer said, I want to work from home? How would that work out?
It's not going to work out well for us.
Sure. So some of the issues you're talking about, hiring manpower, those issues, those are parallel to what's happening in the industry, right? You know, when I started Ford Motor Company, we had pensions. We had, it was the same mindset. We're going to stay there for 30 years, right? That's gone out the window in the last 20 years. So I've certainly seen the same thing in industry as you're seeing here. How do we adapt that? That's the new normal. That's the new normal. We're never going to get back to the point where it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, right? So how do we adjust to that and still have a robust working police force?
So one of I think an interesting question would be kind of that crossroad of also somebody who's young and in their profession, are they looking for something a little bit more fast-paced? I think that's another question is like, where is kind of that intersection between who is our actual target market for the type of officers that we're going to draw, and then what are their expectations for coming in? I certainly don't know the answer right now. I don't expect one, but just like in the consideration of kind of thinking through all these variables, I would imagine somebody who's new off the force isn't necessarily detracted by the idea of something with more risk than somebody who has 4 kids at home. So
I'm going to piggyback on that and take it down a path. Wondering, are you laughing because, I'm going to ask one of those questions?
This is his show, so I'm just here to be eye candy. Don't try too hard.
I mean, this is sort of a serious question, and we don't have to grind it up too much tonight, but it's on my mind, and I think it's relevant to some of the work you're going to be doing over the next several months as you configure your force and think about what talent you need and how much they're going to, we're going to pay them. I've been in a couple of conversations recently relative to the governor's budget and some of the money that they're trying to throw at education and mental health in the state that has to do with the police. And the reason I'm leveraging David's comment is that what is it that we're looking for in police now? What's not only going to attract the bright, dedicated, enthusiastic people that are going to fit into Franklin, but what is the work that they need to do? And I'm wondering how much of that is traditional police work. I don't think we have traditional officers here. I think Dan has hired a unique skill set that I think is right for the village. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are after 1 month do you see that skill set changing in the village? And at all? The question is, should we be, the big question at the state is, should we be hiring social workers and police? Do they partner? Do we try to make that police work different than it is traditionally? Do we have the right people in the right place doing that right work for that community? I stand by what I said, that Dan has hired the right people. but I think it's because he knows that the relationships that we have with our police force and our community is really important on a personal level. I'm just curious about your thoughts, kind of as what's going on out there and what's our state going to spend money on? But then, what does that mean for you and what you're thinking about in your job?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
About half an hour to answer, but I'll try.
Okay, just, I don't want to bore everybody, but it's, you know,
I'm a big proponent of giving our people what they need to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Law enforcement are asked not just to be law enforcement officers, they're asked to be psychologists and therapists, and they see terrible things. We need to make sure they're taken care of, and they're not bringing these things home to their families. So I really believe that we gotta make sure that we give them the proper training so they can do their jobs, and give them the proper resources that when they need help, that we get them help. Or if they are dealing with people with mental illness within the community, which I've seen a little bit in my first month, we gotta be able to direct those people towards the resources that are already available. So in a village this size, I don't think we need to hire a psychologist to put on the staff. But we need to make sure that we understand where those resources are, and to give our officers the tools to deal with people that suffer from mental illness, special needs people, things like that.
thanks. We'll continue the conversation. I think all of us will at some point, but thank you for that.
I think when we look to hire, we have to have a full understanding, and I think, Mr. Sally, you mentioned this, is that we have to make sure we're targeting the right people. It's a somewhat small percentage of law enforcement that would be comfortable coming into a community like this because we're asking so much of them in the customer service aspect. A lot of people go into the academy and they want to be those the warriors, and they want to go out there and save the world. And there's a time and a place for that. It's a very small percentage, but for the most time, we're being very professional, and we're giving customer service to our community and our business owners. And that's what, we have to hire the right people that feel that is their mission. They buy into that.
Question for you. What does customer service mean to you from a police point of view? Police department point of view?
Just what the officers do now, and I'm so impressed. You know, they go out there and they're doing all these vacation checks. I mean, they do so many vacation checks and business checks, and they just stop and they're talking to people. And I think they go out of their way for people. And I've seen other jurisdictions where they're going to drive right by you. They're not going to go check in your house. They're just going to say, absolutely not, that's not my job. I am law enforcement only. And this is a much more progressive view by our officers on what their job is here. And I've been very impressed, very impressed. As you know, West Bloomfield I thought it was the best department. I really did. I think it's a great department. But if I were to ask them to do 10 or 15 vacation checks a week, that's not going to happen. I mean, they're just, because it's not ingrained in the culture there as much as it is here. So we just got to make sure that as we move forward and we hire people, that we continue to hire the right people so we can get the customer service, like I said. It's customer service professionalism. That's what makes our organization that we put together just so important and such value to the community.
That's exactly why the community embraces our police department. When I get a call from an officer who said, I just noticed one of your screen doors wasn't completely closed. I mean, that's an amazing thing, and it's very appreciated. So,
I think that's the huge value of a small police department, these little things that they do every day. If they refuse to do that, if we didn't have that culture here, the juice might not be worth the squeeze for you. But I certainly think that you're getting a great product from what I've seen.
no one will argue that. Good.
Anybody else? Any comments? You know, we have a contract coming up, later this year, early next year, so we have a lot of talking and figure out what's the right thing, and we certainly want to find that and do the right thing, so. Cool. Anything else? If not,
good.
Welcome again, and look forward to working with you. And
So we'll see you in
Keeping the
30
ball
days
rolling.
for the next village council meeting. See what month 2 brought out of you. If you know the shoe is still shiny. You know.
Cool.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
gentlemen.
Really appreciate your time.
Very good.
What else do we have between now and 7?
Well, we talked about trying to look at goals and objectives, and we have a lot of big ticket items with no money to pay for them.
We don't really have a meeting call for that, though. We don't have a public meeting set up for that, do we?
I'm sorry?
Do we have is it okay for us to talk? We don't have a public meeting set up for that, do we?
We've had workshops
Well,
on the,
yeah.
on the budget.
We're not gonna make
capital
decisions, we're
goals.
just gonna, yeah.
I think we're leaving.
Oh, Mr. Village,
One of the things that we do have money for, that we've been talking about is actually the number one priority of the council, is our storm water system. And fixing it, making sure that it works around the village. And we're prepared this evening to give you the overview of how this is going to be worked on in this coming warm weather.
Okay.
Nancy.
See, Nancy's Miss Rainwater and Sewer expert.
Before we jump to that, can I just ask one question? If we have any money in the budget, can we change out these 2 yellow lights?
Yeah, I agree.
That have been sitting here for I don't know how long, that annoy me?
Those are a test, actually, to see how long they'll last.
No,
Actually, I think you ought to change
they look
the,
terrible.
They're showing us between the
Let's have all
soft light
white
and the harsh
lights.
light, right?
Just-
but you ought to change the 8 other ones so
Right,
that
it's
they're all.
really, I agree with you. The
they're
other,
all-
the white ones are worse.
the
I
yellow
like the
light
yellow
rather
ones
than-
better.
yeah, than
Oh,
the-
really?
Yeah.
Oil
Well,
lamps,
White's
is
bright.
Franklin Village.
I know, but it feels better on your eyes
I
not
think
to have
the
to look
Oil
at
lamps,
that. Right,
Franklin
right.
Village, you know, candle.
Oil lamps?
Oil lamps, this is the village.
Oh,
That's a little
natural
stinky.
gas.
Fire department, Mike
I
Brown.
don't know, 10 or 20 oil lamps in here. I'll shorten the meeting.
I'm just asking for consistency.
They should all
We look
match.
at these lights all the time, and it drives me
Thank
crazy.
you,
Well, you
Nancy.
just
Being
recently
anal.
got consistency over your heads.
Right.
because
I did notice that.
The
Yeah, maybe
fact
these-
is, there was only one of those bulbs that was working.
And maybe
But we don't see that.
We don't
Well,
see that.
but it makes a big difference on your desk,
Right.
because that light is all shining down.
Oh, that's, okay, that's a step in the right
But
direction.
it is the wrong, it reflects the wrong way.
Well, actually, yours is bouncing off the ceiling.
Is it, okay, my flat head.
Aren't we all?
Okay,
So every time I come here, I give you handouts and reading homework.
cool.
Okay.
So as the council knows, your priority is stormwater, so Roger has had HRC working on formulating a plan on how we're gonna go through the village and evaluate the road drainage. So this is what we came up with. Each month, you're gonna get a update like this, the first page. We have divided the village into quadrants, and down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's how we're gonna attack it. We're gonna get boots on the ground, we're gonna walk, we're gonna review the drainage of the roadways. We're looking for ditches that are not functioning, we're looking for dry culverts that are impeding drainage. Anything out there that may exist, that may need to be identified. And eventually, we're gonna get you a really big honey-do list with an estimate of cost. I mean, it's gonna be a work in process. We just started this, as you can see, we just started at the beginning of, it was like right December or January, right before we got that cold spell and all that snow. So anything on the cover sheet, in the first quadrant right here, in the purple, we've already looked at. So the first.
Explain what looked at means in this context.
We walked the streets, we were identifying areas of ditching that needs to occur. We were starting at the bottom and working our way up, right? Because what good is starting at the top when we don't know where it's going?
Explain the bottom in this context.
I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so please bear with me. So
Down there.
I appreciate the slowing myself down. So we're starting out where eventually ultimately the water is supposed to go. Whether it's county drain, one of the many water courses throughout the community, some of the wetlands. Where is that water ultimately supposed to end up? So we want to start at those outlets and start working our way through the village. Yes, sir.
So, from the part you've already inventoried, and if you look at the subsequent pages, you can see which each quadrant that
Yes,
you've
you
inventoried
beat
is.
me there, Danny.
Right, so, I guess the general question is, if we don't see something, does that mean it's okay?
It's functioning, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the subsequent pages will break down each road. And there's a key on there. And each little icon shows, you know, there's standing water, buried culvert, dry culvert, ditch, there's ditch, a blockage, high vegetation, swale that may be needed, or simply no ditch. So we're identifying all of the areas, the impertinences, anything that we're gonna end up quantify and eventually get Roger a list of each one. We ended up doing this late last week, so this is just the beginning of it. So we're gonna eventually get you a lot more information, more than you're probably gonna even want to even address. Because as you know, the village has already went through all the storm sewer, pipe checked and cleaned and videoed 99% of your storm sewer that's in there. I think there's one area that actually is on forest that goes out to the detention, the pond that's in the backyards. The pipe is submerged, pipe tech can't get in there unless they do some bulkheading or some additional work. But I think ultimately 99% of the storm sewer has been looked at, cleaned and looked at, evaluated, yes ma'am.
99% has been cleaned or looked at and or
Cleaned and
cleaned?
looked at.
Okay.
Of the
Throughout-
storm sewer.
Throughout
And the culverts.
throughout the village? So I noticed in these maps that in the northeast corner, section 4, there's no smaller map, and are you going to be up there at all?
Yes, we just started this 2
Yes,
weeks
this is
ago.
all they've done.
We just
Okay.
started right before.
Oh, but I saw detail.
Just of the
For
purple
these-
area.
for
Oh, and that's a
areas.
breakdown.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
got it.
We
This
just
is
started.
last priority.
Yeah.
Yes,
Almost.
So hopefully, someday this will be filled with purple.
There's ditches
yes,
where I
and it will
live.
be, yes,
Right.
it will be filled with purple. And Roger says, get this done, we want to get it done in the next 6 months, but it really depends on weather. I mean, we had 2 weeks of cold and snow, so our evaluations came to screeching halt.
So your various notations are pretty self-explanatory, but then there's this general catch-all that has a lot of green lines, which is ditch maintenance needed. So what is that, where there's like, is that like a catch-all?
Ditch maintenance needed is essentially,
There's no D?
There's no ditch, or it's so slight, it's not functioning. It's not going culvert to culvert. We're finding that we have a lot of drive culverts, that there's only this much of the culverts even visible. So we don't really see much evidence of standing water. The water is working its way through, but it's not efficient. It's not deep enough to protect the road base. So anything that says drive, that says ditch, where's that? Ditch maintenance needed.
Yeah.
It needs to be dug out.
Gotcha.
Eventually, we'll have a list of, this street will have 58 feet, I'm just throwing a number out there. 100 feet here, 100 feet there. We're making a list of drive culverts that need to be replaced. My understanding, we don't know if it's gonna be the residents' responsibility or the village responsibility, because they were installed under permit, so our instruction was to get the village a list of drive culverts, and it needed to be.
So on our list of goals and objectives, this was the number one item with a price tag attached of $1 million.
Which I really appreciate. I'm just.
Is that in any way,
No, those are made-up numbers.
okay.
But maybe your question is,
Well,
what could the number be, maybe?
I want to know, is that in any way accurate? Because
That's
that's,
a great question, and right now,
You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
So we can each area is different, and it depends on the amount of work needed. So we're working on quantifying the area we've done, and then might be able to project through and get you a better idea.
We've spent about $500,000 so far on the downtown area, correct?
No.
Well,
We did all the road crossings.
where
okay,
would we
what-
have spent that?
How much have we spent, where did we spend it?
Well, we have 2 grants that we were working with. One was a $200,000 grant directly from the legislature,
Yep,
and the other was just under $400,000 that we got as federal, part of the federal.
okay,
grant. So the total that we have to work with this is just under $600,000.
okay.
What we did in the downtown, I don't think they got us all the way up to $100,000.
Okay.
In the stuff that's been done. But part of the reason that we're going through this is to make sure that we understand what it is that we can get done with the money that's already
Yeah.
been determined for this
So
project.
we still have $500,000 in the bank?
Close to that.
Okay.
News to me, okay.
All right,
That's
so I'm
fine.
just wondering if we're looking at a millage or a special assessment, and it doesn't sound like we're there
Well,
at this point.
there's no
I think that's
doubt
correct.
that it's gonna be a.
And is that a fund that gets replenished?
No.
But this is.
No,
What's the expiration on it?
built in,
two good grants.
and
It's
obviously
either
tight
this
control,
fall or next
understanding of the
summer,
money.
I'm not sure which. Not this summer, we have all of this year to get this
Okay.
money used. What we're trying to do here is to, we're gonna wind up asking for some policy clarifications as we go through this.
Yeah.
And she just gave you a hint of one of those. In our general policies, the culvert that goes under your driveway is yours to maintain. But there's been some discussion because of the number of places where the fact that they haven't been maintained is hampering our ability to get the water to flow. So then the question becomes, I've been using this phrase, that we are going to get the entire base squared around the village. That our attempt here was to get all of the storm drainage system to a level of function that meets our expectations about stormwater management. Does that mean that we would waive in the beginning this question about driveways and clearing out drains? That's a question I'm not asking tonight, but I'm alerting you to the fact that we're going to be asking that as we go ahead. Because it'll make a big difference in how much money we spend out of these grant funds versus what we would get from the community in taking care of that which is theirs.
Do we have an enforceable policy that relates to
We've
the,
been doing it.
hmm?
We've been doing it as we find them.
So a code official
Well,
goes
when you say
out?
we've been doing it, what do you mean we've been doing it?
What we've been, a good answer here would be that as we have found places where we've had backups,
Yeah,
and it's been caused by a drain that somebody's not been maintaining under their driveway, we've been requiring them to fix it.
okay. And our,
How
and
often
our,
has that occurred?
Pardon me?
How many times has that occurred?
Oh, I'd say in the last year and a half, probably 15 to 20.
Okay.
and the residents are responding,
Sometimes okay and sometimes but.
but we have a process where if they don't do it, we do it and charge them.
It's a code enforcement issue. yeah.
Okay, good.
So we should flag that, because that's a big policy issue. It's a big one. And to that point, when would we be needing to have such a policy in place? When's the remediation supposed to start on this?
So can I ask?
Okay.
You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, so we have $500,000 of allocated grant funds that would not come out of the general fund. Ideally, what we would want is that we do an inventory, it's itemized, and then we can make a policy decision to know, are we just taking out of the general fund, or are we just using the grant funds, or is it gonna come out of the general fund? Do we need to make an assessment? Or is the timing unfortunate where the remediation work needs to start prior to having a full inventory? So we're doing a delicate balance of, if we make a policy decision, are we opening ourselves up to X amount of liability that we don't know when we make that decision?
I don't think it's a policy, it's already a policy.
Yeah,
It's already your
that's already what we
responsibility.
do.
So we're not creating a responsibility, we're gonna enforce one, but we're not creating it,
Yeah.
it already exists.
already
It's your
What's the
responsibility to
policy?
maintain your ditch, even
You
though it's in the
maintain-
It's
public
just the
right of way.
ordinance that
You
you're
maintain the
responsible for
But yet,
yours.
we were just told, not always.
Well, they said 15 to 20 times they've enforced that the homeowner's the property owner's responsible for it. Right, yeah.
Answer that
And
question.
if they
And the
don't,
enforceability is because the obligation already exists.
Yeah.
okay,
We have the authority under our code to do that.
so
So the
Sounds like
policy
a
is,
question.
do we want to
Would the
enforce?
policy, would the policy be that if the person decides not to do what we've asked them to do, then we do it and we give them the bill? Is that the policy you're looking for?
That's a
Similar
possibility.
to mowing grass.
Right,
Right.
So we have to have a discussion about policy enforcement.
That's a question of, yes, we need to get.
Or
resolved.
as we're rebaselining this whole thing.
Yeah.
Do we make a rebaselining policy and then go back to the existing policy once everybody's culverts are cleaned out?
So that's,
I mean, I'm just throwing it on the
You captured
table.
well what I was trying to say earlier.
so
What-
we may end up with, looking already, we're gonna have hundreds of issues here probably. I'm seeing a lot of
yeah.
dots on the
Yeah.
map already.
Yeah.
There are a lot of folks who may not have the means to do it.
Right.
May have, through no fault of their own, they have some situation.
Inherited it, yeah.
So it's hard to make a broad brush stroke, that's the rule, it's been the rule for
Yeah.
25 years or 50 years, it's your problem, right? That sounds very, very harsh
Agreed,
to me right now.
but that's the policy decision. There isn't a policy decision to determine whether or not we're putting the burden on people.
Right.
The burden
That
already
exists.
exists.
Yeah. So the
That was
burden-
my point.
Agreed. I think we'll
Yeah,
agree on that.
I'm sorry, I
The,
just
um,
wanted some clarity on that.
The
No,
question I want
I
to ask
understand,
yourself
because
as
there's a
council
difference.
is, okay, we're doing this detailed census of our entire square footage of every culvert, every ditch in the village. Now we've decided, where will those costs be borne?
Right.
Frankly.
Right.
And what's the fairest way to do it? We want to be fair to our residents in some fashion. Some can afford it, some can't afford it. some
But
it's not.
that's a double-edged sword, because then there's all the residents out there that have been doing it, and whose ditches are operating
That's why
and
it's coming,
clean.
Right.
yeah.
And
Well, it's
why
double
should
sword,
they
isn't
burden,
it?
why should they pick up the tax burden of those
for
who've
somebody
chosen
else.
not to?
Well,
Exactly.
so that's.
So that's the balancing
That's
act.
what we have, but there's also residents who have, like as we know, not far from north of us here, they've, filled in their ditch for all practical purposes to the detriment of people, below them,
That's,
So,
never mind.
and dig that up, right, so.
So you guys have gotten right to the heart of what we wanted to talk about this evening, which is what we face as we're going
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do this in my area, understanding that that policy is going to drive what we do in the rest of the counties as well. So we will have more information about this, we will have specifics about what we found, and a workshop like this, where we have 30 to 45 minutes to go through that, will be very, very helpful.
When do you anticipate that?
We would be following up on this in March. That's already in our plan.
Okay.
Nancy, how do you make a decision, culvert versus a ditch in a
The culverts
location?
that we're looking at, just driveway culverts.
Just driveways? Everything else is ditches?
Unless there's already enclosed storm sewer, which is shown on green on your cover sheet. Yes, we are not anticipating or planning on installing any new storm pipe. It's just, we're assuming it's all ditches.
How
And
about
if-
the
and
culverts that are under the roads, though?
Pardon?
How about the culverts under the roads?
Those
did
were already
those.
We did
evaluated.
those.
Yeah, we did those already.
Those are,
You've got through all of them?
Yeah, that's-
That was
last year.
part of one of your grants, the MECDC, and,
Not
Yeah.
on my street.
We-
well,
You
Every
didn't do
street.
my
But
street.
not every-
for drive, they should have, and if not, just let me know.
Only the ones that go
situations.
Under
across
the
the road,
roads,
yeah.
under the road. So, yeah, so if you haven't, so I
If
I
you
know
know
that
of
there's,
one, then you
well, I
need to
know
let
that
them
there's
know.
one on Dana's thing, that there's a question on your thing, if you have a culvert near you, please fill that out. I filled that out. I don't know how many people know about that, that to look on Dana's new weekly email blast, yeah.
I think we had 4 or 5 inputs there, I haven't looked at it yet this week, but yeah, I know we had 4 or 5.
Right, so mine hasn't been addressed,
We paid to have that done.
so,
right.
Well, we
So-
had- it was the whole,
so if somebody has a culvert not in a driveway that's not functioning, either you gotta clean it or you gotta put in a ditch, is that,
Well, if they have a culvert and it's not under a driveway, it probably shouldn't be there.
okay?
So are
But
you
there
saying,
are-
it's like, are you saying like, make sure I understand, so the ditch is enclosed in a pipe system?
Some people have
say-
that.
Yes,
Then, that's a great question, then that's gonna be a policy.
Right.
We're gonna say if the water is not flowing and we see a ditch, a culvert here and we don't see a conveyance system, we're gonna say ditch it. We don't, I can't,
Most of the
unless there's
culverts
an,
are in, under the driveways.
yes.
yeah,
That's
but
where
I'm
most
just
of
saying,
them
if there's an area where there's neither a culvert nor a ditch, and it's blocking the water.
Then we're gonna say for the ditch.
Okay,
Well,
so,
ditch is way cheaper,
So
Yeah,
here's,
yeah.
here's where we're gonna.
but you gotta have the
Here's
beat.
where we're gonna have problems, right? So, we have, you know, for some reason, no ditch there.
Right.
And what's, homeowner, thou shalt put a ditch in now.
right, but I don't like
That's a
the
tough one.
aesthetics of a ditch.
That's a tough one.
Yeah,
So,
so I don't know.
Now,
in theory-
now my
so what I could see us
landscaper can't use
doing-
their lawnmower, now I have to weed whack it now, you
Right.
know, I
But in
just-
theory, there was a ditch there at one point.
maybe not.
But it could have
So,
inherited
there
the house,
absolutely
but they
was.
maybe not
Okay,
have been.
well, that's,
I
a-
don't
So,
get,
thusly-
maybe not, it's hypothetical.
Thusly, we're
Sorry,
going
I raised
to,
the-
no, Roger and I
So-
talked about this.
No.
And this is why we've talked about this, because this is, you know, some of these issues that you're gonna have some residents are not, that they'll be very unhappy.
Yeah.
right,
They're absolutely
So we
gonna.
have to, and one of the things we talked about is trying to educate the residents of why these ditches are important.
So it still goes back to my initial question that I had, which is how does the timing gonna fall of this? Because I would love to have an inventory to make more educated policy decisions, policy being whether or not we wanna take an exception, to manage the 500,000 efficiently. So obviously that would be best to be able to wait until the end. Is that one possible, and when do you expect to have the full coverage?
Our goal is about 6 months to
Wow.
go through it and get you a final report and estimates and areas that we believe are a little more, we're gonna try the best of our ability to prioritize things, but that might be a little difficult because there's gonna be so much.
Okay,
But
and
if
then,
we have any, if we know of any area that we have water that's flooding the road, that would become priority one, because in the wintertime, it could ice, there's you know, it becomes
Yeah.
dangerous to people.
So, as we think about these things, so I'm gonna appreciate the monthly updates and seeing what gets uncovered. Some things we should talk about. So, following up on my last point, there may or may not have been a ditch there. Sometimes they might have been covered up on purpose, sometimes not. We might, as a council, want to consider, they've been asking for homeowners to step up and do it. Obviously, quite a few are. I imagine we're going to have hardship cases. We might want to develop some sort of process to, you know, for a homeowner to ask for a evaluation about it, some sort of relief from it, you know, whatever we don't know all the situations we're going to have. Our policy right now is pretty draconian, like, thou shalt do it. Put the ditch in, you know, if you took the ditch out, then I'm gonna say, probably, yeah, put the ditch back in, you know. But I can see a lot of cases where there's a lot of gray areas, honestly. So I would support some sort of appeals or relief process for us to talk about it.
Good discussion.
So then at that point, right, if a resident has a closed their ditch and has that, it'd be a private storm system, maybe the village then says, okay, you need to let us know it's working, you need to send us a report. And we can give names of contractors that, like the ones who did the culverts here, submit it. Any maintenance is on you. You know, that's an
Yeah.
option as well.
And we have, the Ponds View area is one that goes downhill toward the southeast. And there is a series of, it's a loop
yeah,
with sidewalks all the way around. And the type of ditch varies from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. And we found cross drains that went from inside the sidewalk into a,
Catch basin.
thank you, and from the catch basin, it went through pipes out to the pond that's behind the other row of houses. So this was done at the time the project was developed. So there's a variety of things that we've experienced in terms of the way that stormwater's been approached. So there's not an easy one approach fix to all of this. And what we're trying to do here is to get this as our starting point. If there are policy questions about this, we will have them for you next month. And then we will start focusing on area, was it 4 next or 3?
If you're 2, it would just go to the north there.
So,
All right, so let's move north. Thank you.
we're around time, so Nancy, a few things. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you every month. I'm gonna ask a couple things and we can adjust this. first, every month, if we were looking to complete in 6 months, some sort of status update, we said we'd be at 10%, we're at 10, could be at 18%, we're at 15%, sort of status update, letting us know we're on track or not on track with 6 month timing. Then, throughout the course of the month, maybe 3 things. If you find something critical that we should talk about, that'd be great. Maybe just a summary of your findings for the last 30 days. 0 critical, or 1 critical, or, it's not critical, but this was major. This is a big issue affecting multiple households. So maybe critical, major, minor issues you've seen, just to keep us aware of that as your project is going on. And something like that, Pam
I
or
agree, yeah.
Kathy?
Help us track it,
Understood.
because then we can better help you.
I understand, and this is a work in progress. We kind of, Roger's last week, we said, we should present this this week. And we're like, okay, Roger, we got it. So we understand.
So what I'm looking for is, we're gonna see lots of dots appearing, and just have it understand the months go on, a better context about what you're finding and the severity of what you're finding.
Understood, no problem.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good stuff, thanks, Nancy.
My pleasure.
All right.